Closed captioning for Lakeland Currents is supported by the Minnesota Department of Commerce, Telecommunications Access Minnesota, and Nisswa Tax Service. Nisswa Tax Service, tax preparation for businesses and individuals. Across from City Hall in Nisswa and online at nisswatax.com.
There are many good organizations in Minnesota that do good things for people, and it's an honor and a pleasure for us in Lakeland's Currents to often feature these particular organizations and what they're doing, especially these last 3 or 4 years where this huge recession has impacted so many people's lives. And tonight, it's a real honor for me to introduce to you Kevin Pelkey, who is the Executive Director of the Lakes Area Habitat for Humanity. And I know if you're like me, you've probably heard a lot about Habitat for Humanity, but you may not know what kind of an organization it is, how it operates. I probably have been made aware mostly of former President Jimmy Carter's work with that particular organization, but it's an interesting group, interesting concept, and the local chapter here has been very active for 14 years at least, or maybe longer than
21.
that. 21 years. Mm-hmm. So Kevin, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be with you tonight.
Could you just give us a little background about what is this organization? What is it? What's it made of? How does it work?
Wow, that's the best question I think I've ever been asked, and I love to answer it because it kind of gets to the heart of why we exist. I'll give you just a thumbnail sketch of how this came to be. Back in the 1960s, Millard and Linda Fuller, who lived in the Atlanta area, Millard went into college. He and his college roommates started a mail order business, and they made a pact that by the time they were 30, that they would be millionaires. He and his roommate achieved that. Millard was married. He had some children. They had this very large estate in just outside of Atlanta, and came home from work one day and there was no one home, which was an unusual experience for him. And a note on the table that says, if you value your family and your relationship, you'll meet me in New York. He said, wow, what's this all about? Flew to New York and he met with Linda and they said, our compass is off kilter here. We need to refocus our lives. And they made a decision right then to divest themselves of everything, gave everything away. And they came upon this community in Americas called Koinonia. And from there, this root of people helping people sprouted. And as time developed, after doing some mission work in Africa and coming back to Americas, to Koinonia, Millard and Linda said, the principles we applied in our mission work and the principles that work here, there's magic here. And they started this seed of people helping people by building homes for and with each other and creating this fund for humanity that would help build more homes. And ultimately what happened is Habitat for Humanity International sprouted in 1976. And it's been based in biblical principles that Millard and Linda agreed on their search in life, their path in life. And what's really, really fascinating is in the history since then, Habitat for Humanity International has become the 3rd largest builder of homes in the world, the 8th largest builder of homes in the United States, and it's all done under this principle of people helping people, building up this fund for humanity to fund additional homes into the future, i.e. the family's mortgage payments into the pool helps build the next houses down the road. It's a fascinating concept, and I think it's truly what makes this program so viable and so different is that it started from that simple principle that if I give you a hand and help you up, and you give a hand and help the next person up, that this movement will grow and become live, living, and it has.
Now, you talk about it being sort of a Christian nonprofit. Is it actually affiliated with any particular church?
No, it's a non-denominational program. The way that we view that is it's open to all to be involved. It's open to all to be served. And that all that we ask is that we are given the opportunity to demonstrate some of the very, very fundamental principles that this is based on, the Christian biblical principles of no interest on the mortgage, going back to Exodus and usury, that we are bound to the principle of tithing, so that as income comes into me, it's my obligation through our covenantal principle to Habitat International to pass along a portion of our income to help families in Guatemala. So that's the representation of our Christian identity. We bless every site and we dedicate every home.
But it's not affiliated.
It is not affiliated with any particular organized religion, no individual church. In fact, I'd say we have one of the widest spreading nets that encompasses so many different entities, groups, faiths, non-faith, throughout the entire globe.
Wow. Now you have a local chapter, which is the Lakes Area Humanity or Habitat for Humanity. How many organizations like yours are there in Minnesota?
In Minnesota, there are 34 Habitat affiliates that cover the entire state of Minnesota, with pockets that have yet to be addressed with a group that says, I'm here, let's get this organized, let's deliver this Habitat program. So nearly every corner and piece of Minnesota is served by 34 different entities like ours. And for example, Lakes Area Habitat serves all of Crow Wing, Hubbard, and Cass counties. So it's kind of this little L, and then there's another group that serves this piece here, and another group that serves this piece. In its very, very fundamental beginnings, Habitat believed that every county ought to be its own delivery system for this. And as time goes on, you realize that that may not be the most efficient model, the most effective model, maybe a lot of duplicative administrative services. So there has been a growing awareness that maybe a larger service area is the right delivery method for this program. And started in 1990 by Sister Vivian Arts and Pastor Paul LeDuc in this area. We've now completed 75 homes in this 3-county area. Along with that, the 76 homes that we built in Guatemala through our tithe.
Now, as the executive director of the local chapter, are you responsible to a supervisor somewhere else, or are you pretty much your own person here?
I am responsible to only my board of directors.
Okay.
It's a local group of 14 individuals, the most amazing boss anyone could ever ask for, to pray for, is my board of directors. They are the greatest people to serve. So I am responsible to them. With that said, we have some principally driven, some organizational structures that we are asked to follow and comply with and then report on. And there would be risk by not fulfilling some of those requirements to Habitat International to lose your affiliate status, but you'd really have to work pretty hard to do that. So we've got a fairly loose structure, and when you think about us being the 3rd largest builder of homes in the world as an organization, it's as flat an organization as it goes. I remember one board member several years ago saying, Kevin, what happens if you get promoted? And I'm like, Susan, there is no promotion. This is as high as it gets. So it's cool. A very, very odd dynamic. There are very few organizations, very few business models that even look close to what we do. But the crazy thing is it is the right model for us, and it works. It really brings us right to our own community. We're here to serve, identify the needs, respond to that, and grow.
Now, I know you have a philosophy your organization does about what affordable housing means to people. Mm-hmm. What is that generally?
You know, the term affordable housing has been one of those buzzwords in the last decade, and it's a moving target. So if you had 30 people in the room and asked each individual person what affordable housing means to you, you might have 30 very, very different answers. What we believe in the Habitat for Humanity program is that affordable housing is that it's no more than 30% of your income is spent on your total housing cost. In our program, that would be the owning of the home, including your taxes and insurance, your utilities, and the basic fundamental things that need to be placed in a home should not exceed 30% of your income. That, in my mind, is what could be truly viewed as affordable housing, because it can now become a shifting scale in any economic strata. What we experience, because we serve families whose incomes are, well, compromised, they're very low. It'd be 25 to 50% of the median income. To find housing that fits the 30% or less is a very, very difficult challenge for families. Most of the families who do apply to us, when they write on their application what their current housing condition is and what their rent payment is and what their utilities are, we discover that many families are paying 85% of their take-home income on their housing needs.
Wow.
Yeah. How do you make it?
Pretty tough.
What it really does is it places families in an incredibly uncompromising position, of a very difficult position of making decisions. So if 80% of your income is going into housing, you're going to make the decision to keep that housing, or your option is homelessness, right? But then you have those decisions, okay, what is important today? Who do I take care of? What bill do I just ignore? What do we sacrifice? And it's many of the things that so many of us take just for, that it's just always there, that we just do it. We take it for granted. And these are the very, very difficult decisions that our families have. We actually ask our family selection committee to do an exercise where they're placed in the shoes of a scenario much like our families live, to help them understand where families are coming from so we can help serve their needs as best, and to help identify the families who can benefit from our program the most.
I'm curious about how you do that, because you said you have a family selection committee.
We do.
And what do they do then? How do you determine that someone, first of all, has the need, but I would guess you need to have someone who can also sustain this house once you get it built?
Right, and there are three basic requirements to be approved for our program. There are sub things to each of these, but there's demonstrated need. Why are you applying? Why do you need our services? There's the ability to pay. What is your income source that will help support the ownership and operation of that home? And then willingness to partner. That's a hard one to identify, but in our program we require that a family contribute a minimum of 300 hours of sweat equity in the construction of that home before we would allow that family to move in to a completed home. So how do we go about identifying families? The curious thing is, right now, without even advertising that we are seeking families, we've collected over 200 names in the last 18 months of people who want nothing more than the opportunity to get an application to see if they would qualify for our program, so that we could potentially serve them by building a home with them. So what we do, and we have an active process in our Hubbard County through Reamer corridor to identify a family or families to serve in our program. So we put out little flyers, advertise in all the different vehicles that we can identify, saying if you think you have a need for housing and would like to learn more about one option, come and find out how you can qualify for a Habitat for Humanity home. So we do that. And at those meetings, we hand out the applications and explain it. And the families have to give us a lot of personal information. It gets to be almost intrusive to a family. We ask them, what's up? Why are you applying to us? Tell us about where you are at. What's your story? We really do want to get to know the family. What's your sources of income? And we also want to know what your debts are. So we pull credit reports. And tell us how you would plan to fulfill the sweat equity obligations. Well, after we collect all this data, then we turn it over to this amazing, amazing group of volunteers, our Family Selection Committee. There are nearly 20 people who serve on this committee. And I think, after being here as long as I have, I'm convinced that they have the hardest work that this organization has available, bar none. Building the house, it's hard work, but it pales in comparison to the challenge of taking a group of applications and determining yes or no, and wow, the care that this group takes in their management of this process is amazing. The compassion, the humor, the seriousness. It's just rich with what is really, really right about people wanting to make a difference.
Walk us through, once you've selected a family, what's the next steps? How do you get the money? Where do you get the materials?
Well, you know, that's the interesting question about how we approach who's next, or what do we do to line up a project for every family. Planning a project is incredibly simple. And actually executing a project isn't as difficult as I once used to think it was. The real challenge, and it goes right to the heart of which families are going to be presented for approval, and once they are, now, when are we going to be ready? So we've had the unfortunate experience of having a family wait for almost 4 years from time of application to time of service, and that was largely driven by the fact that they wanted to live in a community. We were having incredible challenges finding a building site that we could afford. So there were building sites that were available, but we just could not afford to invest that kind of cash into dirt, a place to put the house. So part of it's driven by where do we have building sites. And a lot of our methods of acquiring building sites has been dependent on anybody have a lot they want to donate? But we've also gotten aggressively into the game of buying lots over the last 6 or 7 years. And we actually have a healthy profile of lots, but just not where everybody wants to live. So that's part of it. The other part is how many families have we approved, and how many do we think we have the capacity to serve in a given year? And that gets right to the heart of, well, where's the money coming from? And so if we have a project that we know that is being sponsored, for instance, by an organization, one of the strongest sponsorship organizations we've ever come across in our organization, the history of Habitat, is the Thrivent Financial for Lutherans corporate office. They've had a program now for about 8 years where the corporation will sponsor a home of 55% of the cost of that house. So if you know that one of the houses that we've been approved for is to be built in Brainerd, and we have a family that's approved for Brainerd and Pillager, we know that we can plan this house right away in Brainerd while we still raise the resources for the family that we haven't identified a start date in Pillager. So yes, acquiring the resources is a real ongoing process for us. And what is really, really cool about it is that as we add more families to our profile, we do become the lender for them. So we write the checks to all of the different vendors, the places that we buy the materials from, and add that up and write a mortgage for that family at 0%, no profit. But their mortgage payments then come back to us. And those mortgage payments go into what we refer to as this fund for humanity that then becomes a pool for us to draw on to help buy the products and pay for the materials and the vendors that we hire for the next jobs. In addition to that, we do the same things that almost every other nonprofit does. We do the keynote activities such as our banquet with an auction in June. We have the ongoing appeals to individuals. We will submit for grant requests from the different entities. And one of the more unique things to us locally is that we've got a Restore, which is it's a retail store filled with stuff open to the public.
Building materials? Mostly windows, doors?
Furniture, building materials, windows, doors, flooring, lighting. Yeah, and it varies almost day to day. We don't get to control necessarily what's coming in because it's all donated material. And we sell it. And it's driven by volunteers. And it's become 36% of our total operating budget. So
when you've identified a person, let's say you've identified a family in Brainerd, you've got the lot, you've got the resources set up to start doing this, how do you get the workers? How do you get the volunteers to do it? Because it's all really volunteer-driven.
It is. It is. There are obviously things that we do hire out. So after we pull a building permit and we stage the site by getting it all ready, and all of the homes that we build for, oh gosh, I'd say the last 6 or 7 years have been slab on grade, or to use the term patio home. Once we have that concrete slab ready and the materials are ordered and on site, we then say we are ready to build, and let's say it's 3 weeks out from today or 4 weeks out from today. Then we start calling on the places that we typically do and say, we have a build that's scheduled to start on June 15th. Would you sign up for a shift? And the magic of what's been happening lately is that we've had an abundance of people responding. It's actually fun. It is a totally unique experience. We like to call it organized chaos. To show up on a Monday morning at 8 o'clock with this concrete slab and this pile of material and one skilled construction worker.
One.
And we may get 30 or 40 people show up who are so ready to put on a tool belt and say, I want to build a house. And it's our job to use that resource. And again, I'm going to go back to a comment earlier that it works for us, but if you looked at it from an external perspective and said, well, how could we make this function better? I think almost anyone from the outside would look at us and say, this shouldn't work. You have a pile of material, a blueprint, and one skilled construction worker, and you're going to tell me you're going to build a home and you're going to do it in a quality fashion, and oh, by the way, you're going to do it in about 5 weeks? No, it doesn't make sense. But that's what we're doing.
So these are all inspected, obviously.
Oh, we fulfill the obligations of the building code and then some. In fact, we build all of our homes to what's called the Minnesota Green Building Community Standards. And we do have some of our homes tested. And they've come back with some phenomenal ratings. I've shared one of the ratings. It's a HERS rating. It's kind of a goofy term, but it just puts a number to the house that says the closer to zero the number that is, or below zero, it would even be better. The better the house is built. It's not uncommon in the industry to have homes in the 70, 80, 90 range in this scoring thing. We scored a 53 on that last house. And done under these principles, under this organized chaos. So it is an absolute hoot. It is a treat to come in and watch this process, and that by the end of the first day, all the rafters are up and they're already looking at, well, when are we shingling? It
goes that fast.
Oh my gosh, it goes just like that.
And I know a lot of the reports I've seen is, like you said, there are a lot of folks that come to help.
There are.
And if somebody can steer all that energy into a professional level product, it wouldn't take long to get it done.
I have one of the most amazing resources in my staff, and that is our construction manager, that he is skilled enough to understand that part of his job is to give everybody a meaningful experience so they want to come back for more. Part of his job is to monitor the house to make sure it's being built to all of the standards that we've set out, that the state has set out, that the city may have set out, and that his job is to work with the family. Now imagine that. You're building your very first home probably, and you're doing it in the midst of 30 to 40 other people that you don't know, and that it's going to be done in 5 weeks. That's stress. So to manage that family through that process, to coach them through that process, and to get them to understand the dynamics of what a finished product is and how it operates, I've been blessed with an amazing construction manager.
We only have a couple minutes left. It's going that fast.
Oh my gosh.
You have built 75 homes in this particular area. What's your track record been with the people who've moved into them? Have most of them met the criteria well enough so that they're still there, they still take care of that house?
Yeah, you know, and that's a very challenging question to answer in a small time frame, but we have, of the 75 homes we've completed, we've had one foreclosure.
Wow. Yeah. That's pretty incredible.
It is.
That is incredible.
I think it's very respectful of the fact that we do try to deliver a truly affordable home, and that we involve the family in the process. With that said, families who are in our homes have the same rights as all other homeowners. They can sell, they can indeed and have refinanced on occasion. Why refinance a 0% loan? But selling the home because life changes is a legitimate opportunity for our families, and we've had about 16 or 17 over the 21 years whose lives have changed. They've moved on and have chosen to sell their home, and they have the same benefits and the same complications as you and I as homeowners. If the market's strong, they'll have some profits on the sale. If it's weak like it is now, you stand the risk of losing money on the product.
Do you have a website or someplace that people can get a hold of you?
I do. It's just www.lakesareahabitatforhumanity.org. We even have a Facebook icon on there, so if you want to get some real live, fast updates on what's happening both in our restore and in our organization, construction, dedication, product coming in, Facebook, like us on Facebook, and you'll catch up with us very quickly.
Just one real quick last question. Do people have a choice of how the house looks?
Well, that's a great question, and the answer is we've had some learning lessons that said to us that the more decisions that we've placed in our family's hands, the more stressful it is. And one of the families came to me after I told them they could select the color of paint, the color of floors, the color of the shingles, and the color of the countertop. Now, mind you, color choices, and only 4 of them. The response was, Kevin, that's too many decisions. Just tell me when and where we're building.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. So it made my life a lot simpler to say we're going to build relatively the same thing over and over and over.
Cool.
And it works.
Well, it's a great organization, and that's a pretty impressive track record that you have here building 75 homes. So keep up the good work. That's
Thank you.
Really helped a lot of people.
Thank you.
You've been watching Lakeland Currents, where we're talking about what you're talking about. I'm Ray Gildow. So long until next time.